those state auditor reports, we've obtained the operating levy by fiscal year for the last 6 years, with that 7-cent increase being reflected with this current fiscal year of 2020-21.
We would take a break here to compliment you for getting that 7-cent levy passed.
Absolutely.
So you already have your revenue source in place. Congratulations. I'm told it was about a 61% approval margin, and there's no sunset on it. So that's going to be very helpful to the financing in case we have to, in order to accommodate a bigger project, we have to extend it beyond 20 years. We're hopeful that the 20 years will still be sufficient. And but congratulations on getting your levy passed.
So now I move into the first option that's going to correspond with Schedule 1 from that one-page executive summary. As you can see on page 3, we have a 20-year financing. Within the table itself, if you look to the far left, you see the date. So we've assumed a funding date of April 21st of next year. This is just to provide an idea on if construction starts and you have bids by that time, to actually have the money available to start spending. It's not set in stone, similar to the overall financing itself. However, it provides a good idea on what the district can expect in terms of your overall interest costs using this structure. There are semi-annual payments. In October, it's interest only, and in April each year, it's going to be principal and interest. However, as you can see in that second column for principal, we have delayed the first principal payment until April of 2023. So nearly 2 years after the actual financing is funded. And we've done that for a couple of reasons. One, it keeps those overall costs lower, so it's not as much of a hit to the budget, obviously, when you're starting this. And two, for the money that is going to be needed to make these payments, it can be set aside to use as a cushion for any unforeseen increases if there's change orders for that construction cost by keeping it interest only. In the far right column, we have your fiscal total. Ignoring that first year, so starting in 2023 thereafter, there's average annual payments of between $290,000 and $294,000 per year. So we did a level structure on this, keeping those total fiscal year payments the same. Whereas if you look on that principal column, your principal payments gradually increase each year with this structure.
Explain how the rate is tied with a specific maturity.
Sure. If you look in the third column labeled coupon, this is the interest rate associated with each maturity. So starting in 2023, with this structure, we're assuming a 1.5% interest rate. If we go out to 2041, we have a 3.75% interest rate. The reason for the gradual increase is based upon the investor and what they are going to want. So take, for instance, someone who only wants to invest their money for 5 years. So out to 2026, they would be willing to do that for the 2.25% interest rate versus someone who's going to, or a bank, willing to invest for another maybe 15 years out to that 20-year mark. They're going to want to have a higher interest rate in order to compensate them for locking in that interest rate for that longer period of time.
These rates in here are about 0.5% above current market levels. So we're trying to be somewhat conservative on the rates we're projecting as well. But it does assume that we would receive an A- rating from S&P Global on your financing, which on the earlier one we did, it was below $1 million, so it wasn't necessary to get a rating. It wasn't economical at that time. But because this $4 million is probably more than the local market will absorb, we'll need to have rated paper to show banks throughout the state and the region in order to be successful in the marketing effort. She'll get to that in a moment on the sources and uses of funds.
Right. With under, the last item to point out is under yield statistics, the average coupon. This is the average interest rate for the life of the financing over that entire 20 years, 3.24%. One of the things to point out is once LJ Hart and Company has sold the certificates on behalf of the district, these interest rates are locked in. There isn't a reset period in 4, 5, 6 years. So once they're locked in, they are locked in for the life of the financing. One of the features that LJ Hart and Company does put on the majority, if not all of our financings, is going to be best illustrated on page 4, labeled Schedule 1A. This is the debt service to maturity and call. This is illustrating that these certificates will have a 5-year call feature, which means that on April 15th, 2026, and anytime thereafter, the district has the option to prepay or refinance these certificates if it's economical to do so to a lower interest rate. Both of them will save on interest expense, whether it's a small prepayment, if it's $100,000, $200,000, or if it's economical to refinance just slightly over $3.2 million of this particular structure. With the call feature, it's only at the option of the district to refinance or prepay the certificates. If I were an investor, I cannot force the district to give me my money back, a put feature. So it's just a call feature at the option of the district. And if at that 5-year mark, it's not economical to refinance, but maybe a year later it is, that call feature remains open.
This will also accommodate your ongoing fundraising effort. Say 2-3 years from now, you receive a fairly substantial contribution to your project, then you could prepay with that money and save interest expense. But you wouldn't be obligated to it, but that would be an option that the board could consider.
Absolutely.
This just a one-time option, or could we do that every, however long we needed to?
Very, very good. Go ahead, tell her the answer, Courtney.
So if it's just a prepayment and you're only prepaying a portion or maybe one maturity and the other certificates are still outstanding, those still remain callable. So if you only do a small prepayment, but then maybe a year later, it's economical to refinance the remaining certificates, you can refinance those. Once you've refinanced the entire issue and the 2021 certificates cease, the new certificates will also likely have a short call feature. You'll be locked in for a few years, similar to this, but then there will be another opportunity for the district to either make a prepayment or refinance.
Once the call window opens, it stays open. So you don't have to do it in 5 years, and then if you don't do it in 5 years, you've missed the boat.
Right.
It stays open till 2041. It may never be economical to prepay or to refinance, but you'll always have the ability to do that. And most likely there will be a time that comes about when a restructuring or refinancing, taking into account new circumstances, is going to be beneficial. So you'll have that option, but it's your option. The investors or the lenders can't force you to adjust the rate to a higher level.
Absolutely. I'll move on to the sources and uses of funds on the next page, page 5, labeled Schedule 1B. The numbers on this page are going to correspond with the second, third, and fourth column of that one-page executive summary. So under sources, we have the proceeds from the certificates, the $4.1 million. Under the uses, I'm going to skip the deposit to construction fund for just a moment. We have your costs of issuance. All of these, the closing costs, are going to be one-time fees, assuming that the district moves forward with the financing and we sell the certificates on your behalf, except for that registrar, paying agent, trustee bank fees. It's a $1,500 initial setup and then an $1,800 annual fee for as long as the certificates are outstanding. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But just starting at the top, the special tax counsel fees, these are the fees to the legal firm that will be preparing the legal documents to be signed by the district once the financing is in place. You've approved it and we have interest rates that have been locked in. The official statement, printing and preparation. This is to draft a prospectus that will provide information on the district itself, as well as what the financing proceeds will be used for. It's what we give to potential investors in order to allow them to make an informed decision on whether to invest and purchase the certificate. So it would include the rating that had been received from Standard & Poor's. Those paying agent trustee bank fees, this is typically will be provided to UMB Bank in their trust department. They're responsible for holding the funds once the closing date has occurred to then make payments on behalf of the district for those construction costs, as well as then on that semi-annual basis, invoicing the district for the principal and interest payments and then other administrative tasks that will be associated with the financing, filling out confirmations for your audits, as an example. The underwriting fees and the expenses are to LJ Hart & Company to compensate us for the risk of buying the certificates from the district and then reselling them to investors.
Our role as your underwriter is to find the money from a variety of lenders. A certificate of participation is basically an agreement from some individual that they would loan you $5,000 at a specific interest rate, because these are in 5,000 increments. So we assemble a whole group of lenders, and no one single bank has to provide all of it. We will give the local banks the first opportunity to participate, and I imagine we would receive between $1 and $2 million worth of support from those sources, maybe more, but they will definitely be the first people to receive an opportunity, as well as any individuals in your area that are interested.
Right. And we do share that fee. So taking into account an individual, let's say that individual has an Edward Jones account. In order to compensate that Edward Jones representative, we do share that fee with the Edward Jones, if it's Wells Fargo account, Raymond James, that type of situation. The rating fee, as we had alluded to, is to Standard & Poor's S&P Global. So it's going through a process where the district will answer questions on your economy, your overall operations, what's occurring around you. That's something that LJ Hart & Company does assist the district with in preparation for a call with them. So typically it'll be 2 or 3 pages of questions. We go through them. It will likely be with Ms. Milburn to answer all of them, put together a nice package to send to S&P. Then on the actual call with them, it's a 30-minute call instead of an hour and a half call. So it shows the preparation that the district puts into making sure it will be a very efficient use of time. Did you want to say something?
I'll wait.
Okay.
I'll wait.
The underwriting expenses correspond with those fees. So the expenses are going to cover items such as any travel to the district when we get the legal document signed, assuming that the financing does move forward, copying, postage. With this, we can provide a detailed list of all of the items that do fall under this if it is requested by the district. And finally, the recording fee. We have an allowance in order to encumber the property that will be a part of this financing with the Recorder of Deeds office. So we have that allowance in order to get that recorded on the books. If we add together all of those costs, a little more than $105,000, which is the third column on that executive summary, This is assumed to come out of the financing proceeds, such then after paying for those costs, the deposit to the construction fund, $3,994,650 for the project.
These are not to exceed figures based on a $4 million project size. If, as she said earlier, if you go for a smaller one, there'll be pro rata reductions in some of them, but they will not be increased beyond these levels. I think that's.
Are there any questions on the structure or the numbers before I talk? Excuse me, sorry, there's loud noises in the background. Before I go through the cash flows. Okay.
I just had a question that I don't think it necessarily has to do with these funds, but at today's market, how quickly do you think the bonds would sell?
We would probably be able to sell them within a couple of weeks once we start.
Okay.
We would allow the first week for local orders primarily, but we would be looking beyond the local market to finish it off so that we don't just do one phase and then start the second phase. We'd be looking at getting the whole package done from the beginning, just making sure that the local investors get to pick which ones they would want.
Right. I know the original, when we worked with you originally, I know a lot of the bonds were sold locally. Of course, it was a much smaller amount than what we're talking about now. But I know we did have to finish it off in the Kansas City area.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. I was just saying, when we worked with you before, I know it was a much smaller amount, but a lot of the bonds were purchased locally.
That's correct.
But yeah, I know we did have to go outside of our area to finish it off. So I just wondered what
it would be a similar process here.
I'm sorry?
It would be a similar process here. Okay. But I expect 1 to 2 million would be placed with local financial institutions.
Right. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Good question. So we'll move on to page 6, labeled spreadsheet 1. It has the 5 brightly colored columns. So now that we've talked about an overall structure and the costs associated with it, this answers the question, well, how is it going to be paid for from the levy that was voted in? So starting with the far left column, we have the assessed valuation by fiscal year. The first 3 rows are actual figures, as I'd mentioned, retained from the state auditor reports. And then starting in 2021-22 out to the last year, I've assumed a 1% growth in assessed valuation each year thereafter. We've done that not only to be conservative, but there was a large jump in assessed valuation from 1920 to 2021 of almost $60 million. I don't want to assume that we're going to have a $60 million increase year over year. So that's another reason why we went with the 1% growth.
Mm-hmm.
From there, in the light green column, we have the revenue from only using 3 cents. So 3 of the 7 cents to generate funds to make the payments on the lease financing. So starting with next fiscal year, actually having to use the 3 cents from that tax levy to do so. The light blue column are the fiscal year payments, principal and interest, taken from Schedule 1. I'm going to skip the purple column for just a moment and go to the first light orange column, the surplus funds. Because we're only assuming that it's 3 cents, it's not the full 7 cents, it's just slightly more in revenue than what is needed to make those payments, except for that first year. You can see, as I mentioned, it's interest only, so you have that larger surplus. And this is assuming that if the money from that 3 cents that's not spent on principal and interest is set to start accumulating, that can then be used to make a prepayment if the district so chooses, or if the money is used for something else, then obviously that accumulated surplus isn't going to be nearly as high. But each year we're ranging around $30,000 up to around $90,000 when we go out to that last year after the first year when the principal payments go into effect. I will move back now to that debt service coverage ratio. So after the first year of the 2.68, and this is the number of times revenue over those payments, where we have the 1.1 out to the 1.32. This metric is going to be beneficial whenever we actually go to Standard & Poor's for the rating. Typically, they like to see a coverage of at least 1.25 times. So with this structure and having the level payments, obviously it's going to be a lower coverage because the revenues are what we're assuming the lowest at that time with the assessed valuation before it gradually increases each year. So another reason why it's not going to be the best structure to necessarily move forward with. However, because we're only assuming 3 cents, there is the opportunity to assume 4 cents or whatever would be needed for achieving a 1.25 times a net debt service coverage ratio. It's not something that has to be determined right now. It's for illustration purposes to let you know what the district can expect as part of that Standard & Poor's rating process.
We'll let that be our presentation for right. I can't talk.
That's okay. But right now, within the executive summary and the other pages within this book, it goes through that same process, obviously just with the smaller financing amounts. Similar to that first one, those cost of issuance are also on not to exceed basis. So it's going to be the max. And then we have the levy required for those smaller financing amounts of 2 cents and then 1.5 cents.
I apologize for the frog in my throat. We're really eager to work with you on and being successful in completing this financing. There are no charges incurred legally or for us until we in fact are successful and are able to deliver your money. And then you agree with what the final rates are and all of that. We're not working on an hourly fee basis or anything like that. It's contingent upon finding investors for you. That's what our role would be. I didn't really give Courtney much of an introduction. Courtney Wegman is a vice president with our firm. She's going on her 8th year of being with the company. She's also a CPA. Prior to joining the firm, she was with Deloitte and Touche for about 4 years before she joined our company. And she'll be our primary contact, although Todd and myself will be involved in as well. And we appreciate the chance to go over this in this format today. I hope it was that you could follow along all right as we explained it. We'll be available for future questions that you might have as well. We did send a draft agreement, and that's in your packet. We'll before we can do much further work, we would need action by the board to appoint LJ Hart and Company as your municipal bond underwriter. But that would be necessary in order for us to actually start putting together the documents that would be necessary to complete the financing. So
can I ask you a
as
question?
of right now, we're just expressing interest. We have a non-binding letter of intent from Ms. Milburn,
yes,
which is not binding on the board to select us. It just protects us so that you know this is, we're talking to you as a future underwriter rather than a municipal bond advisor. And a lot of it is regulations, why we have to do it the way we're doing it. Do you have any questions? I again apologize for my raspy throat.
I think Joyce.
Yeah, are these collateralized bonds? Are we using collateral from all of our properties to support these bonds, or are they just out and out lease purchase bonds?
They'll be for sure the new facility would be encumbered.
Okay.
I'm not positive what it would take to get a solid rating. We would try to stay away from encumbering any of your other facilities.
Okay.
However, if you're going to use a portion of the proceeds for improving other branches, then we will probably need to encumber them as well. The more collateral backing it, the greater comfort the investors would have. But it's a nuisance to free up encumbrances on branch facilities. So we don't want to over collateralize, but we want to collateralize enough to get your money at economical terms.
Okay, and that was another question I had. Okay, since we are going to do a fundraising project, if we were fortunate enough to say raise funds for half of the cost of this project, and we had already received the funds from you, can those funds then be used for another project that we would have an ongoing project somewhere else?
Well, it will depend on I imagine on the conditions that the donor, what their expectations were when they donated the money to you. They might have a specific project in mind, but our goal will be to give you as much freedom to use those other funds as you want rather, but they also will help you out in terms of paying this off faster than what we're proposing.
Okay. Well,
and that would make your 7-cent levy be open for more activities than just paying this lease as well.
Yeah, that's what we're kind of looking at, because we do have ongoing projects. We have a master plan for several of our branches, and that's what we were primarily looking at was, would we be able to use funds that were donated or for another project, or we would probably use the donated funds to pay down on this, and then those excess funds used for another project. So it's not limiting us to only the Monette project. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Your donated funds would be limited by what your agreement is with the donor.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your clarifications on all of that.
Yes.
They're going to actually stay around, I think, for the CMR stuff.
We would like to hear some of the other presentations. Courtney needs to be excused. She has an orthodontist appointment, so she'll be leaving. But in fact, she's already stayed longer than she wanted to. But we appreciate your interest, and we'll put ourselves on mute and look forward to hearing from some of the other professionals.
Well,
thank you.
We had worked with you. I had worked with you on the project we had before, and I have to say that it made it. LJ Hart was really easy to work with. It was a well put together project, and it worked for us very well. So, I was glad that you were interested in this one.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We're eager to help again. Thank you.
Okay, CMR interview report. Is that Jessica?
Who's going to okay.
Yep, I think that's me. Can you all see my screen?
And you all should have a copy of this paper copy as well that I sent you digitally.
Okay, I'm going to start from the very beginning and kind of give you all a summary of where we've been since the last time we met trying to fix my screen here so I can see everybody. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, it's much smaller.
Oh, it is much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Did that get it larger for you?
Mm-mm.
There,
There it
yes.
A
is.
little bit.
And I lost everybody.
That's a good size.
Okay. All right, so since the last time we met, if you recall, we opened up the qualification packets for the CMR. There were 5 that submitted. The following week, the committee reviewed the qualification packets and shortlisted the submitters down to 3, Branco Enterprises, DeWitt and Associates, and R.E. Smith Construction Company. Following that, we requested that they prepare an interview and ask for proposals. Per the Missouri state statutes, selection of a CMR is a 2-step process. Step 1 is qualifications. Step 2 is proposals. So the qualification portion of that is fulfilled with the interview, and then the proposal portion obviously is fulfilled with their sealed proposal. The score sheet I have up on the screen shows those 2 steps and the scoring that we went through. After the interviews, you'll see that Branco's average score per committee member was 364.5, and that's out of a 450 point possibility. DeWitt's was 274.5, and R.E. Smith came in at 375.75. So from the interview standpoint, R.E. Smith had the larger point or accumulated the most points for step 1. Step 2 from the proposals is a 550 points possible, and the 450 and 550 come from the scoring being weighted in a 45% weighting for the qualifications and a 55% weighting for the proposal. So that's where those total points possible comes from. So following the interviews, we opened up their proposals, which were sealed. There were 4 criteria requested on their proposals. Pre-construction services, which is the services that they would provide before the project goes out to bid. So that's all the cost estimating, that's the assistance with to us as we go through design, all that type of stuff. The overhead and profit, that's the percentage obviously that they make on the project. General conditions, that is the fee that they'll charge for all the things that they need in order to build the building, but don't actually get put in the building. So like the job trailer, the computer for the site superintendent, the dumpsters, the toilets, those types of things that they need in order to build the building. And then the performance and payment bonds are the bonds that are required for them. Each one of those CMRs totals we have listed. Those were then weighted per points possible, adding up to that 550, which I just mentioned. Again, R.E. Smith's proposal ended up being the highest scored proposal. And then when you add up all those points together, R.E. Smith ended up with 634.97 points out of 1,000 possible. Next was Branco Enterprises with 604.45 and DeWitt with 460.38. So based on the scoring, R.E. Smith scored the highest after both steps were completed. Any questions?
Nope. That's pretty clear.
Mhm.
634.97.
Does the committee want to say anything about the interviews?
Well, I would like to say that either one, Branco or R.E. Smith, to me, either one of those would have been fine. They were both excellent.
I agree.
I agree too.
And I hope you say that, tell them that Branco was right up there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure I'll hear from all of them.
I have a meeting with Branco later today on another project, so I'm sure they'll be bending my ear too.
I bet they will. I feel for you.
The
Maybe you'll
library-
take the heat off of me. So
Oh,
yeah.
probably.
Well, they were at,
I felt that they won it on the presentation. I know this shows that we were split, but it looks like with the proposals, that's where they lost it.
Yeah.
And I think, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, when you factored in the percentage of their profit for a $4 million building, I believe RE Smith would be saving about $40,000 total.
I think it was somewhere around 46, 47,000 based on a $4 million project.
I think
Yep.
maybe one reasoning, they did get the high school job too, so they're going to be right next door.
Yep.
So that'll be very nice.
And they did
Yep.
mention that in their interview.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
I felt like the past library experience was important. If that helps you any, Jessica, in explaining it to either of them, that was not, that was just kind of another little final touch that helped.
Mhm.
I did as well. I felt like I really liked Branco's presentation, but then when it came to all the different libraries with RE Smith, that just kind of put them above Branco for me.
Me too.
It made me kind of sad for the other company because I don't want to ever have to rate people like that again. But how are they going to get library? How are they going to get library experience if
Yeah.
that's a circular thing?
I liked Branco's presentation towards thinking about the community, how much they were going to upset the neighborhood, and all the other things that were going on, and bringing the neighborhood into the project. I really liked that aspect of it.
Me too.
I did too.
Yeah. I hope RE Smith will take that into account,
Mhm.
even though they didn't mention that.
They were actually, RE Smith was an offshoot of what we did at Cassville. And I have to say, they had some of the best project managers we've ever worked with. And they were very open to any change that we needed. And usually they brought up anything that we didn't see right off the bat. So I think they would be comfortable to work with.
Okay. So now we, let's see, we need
a motion.
I'm going to move, since Jessica presented it, I'm going to move that we accept or that we approve the CMR interview for RE Smith Construction Company and award them the job. Need a second?
I second.
Jan.
Julie?
Either way.
All in favor? Motion carried. Unanimous.
Gina, we've been working on the CMR contract, and our contract administrator is leaving on vacation tomorrow. So do you mind if I go ahead and get that ball rolling with RE Smith today so we can keep it going? Okay, I appreciate it.
I would think that I haven't had a chance, obviously, to look over the contract real well, and I can take it to a lawyer, but if we need to get the ball rolling, I think it'll be fine.
Actually, we have had AIA has released a new update since I sent the first one to you anyway, so don't worry about it. It's going to be different.
Okay. Either Julie or Janet, and they both went at the same time. So.
Okay, draft of schematic design revision, Paragon.
All right. I was going to jump in and just say Tanner was going to present the Monet Library drawings. He's got a meeting here in about 9 minutes. He'll have to step out. We're going to we had a coworker have a baby this week, and he's filling in to help out.
He had a baby?
Oh, no. No.
I would let him, I'd give him the time off. Yeah.
So you'll have to put up with me. I apologize. We've got a site plan, revised site plan, floor plan, and then exterior elevations. This presentation is somewhat different than the previous presentations you guys have seen in the past. That was geared towards very pretty graphical representations of the building in order to get support by the public. These drawings are much more technical and are about trying to catch up to where we were back in first quarter 2020 with the new and revised building program. As far as the site plan, we have been able to significantly reduce the number of parking spaces on the property because our building footprint has reduced. That has led to a lot more green space and a lot more flexibility on those parking spaces. Sorry, my brain's going a million different directions right now. One of the things I thought I should mention is that Gina and Joyce have not seen any of this information and that this is a draft. We haven't really been able to check any of these decisions with anybody at Barry Lawrence, and please don't treat this as gospel or fixed. It's just a moment in time to show you where we've come since earlier this year. We were able to add a patio to both the building program and the site plan because of that reduction in building program. It was something that Gina and Joyce, and I believe the board, had wanted in the project from the very beginning, but because of the original building footprint, we just couldn't make it happen. We've been able to incorporate that now.
That's good.
Yeah, we've retained most of the elements of the previous site plan as far as site elements, simply because it was something that worked as far as traffic flow, views from the streets. It seemed to fit what Gina and Joyce were wanting. One of the things, Gina and Joyce, I thought I'd mentioned, we did try and get parking along the north property line, and it just didn't work out. There's no way to get the staff parking on that north property line without eliminating parking on the Park Street side of the site. What it did allow us is a little bit more freedom with the immediate kind of grass areas around the building. So the traffic flow of this site plan is significantly easier for both patrons and delivery trucks. We retained some of those site elements, the flagpole, the monument sign, and the island. We've started to incorporate City of Monette green space requirements as far as parking lots. Totally rethought circulation from the parking lot to the building. One of the things I'll mention, we've located the mechanical units in the northwest corner, kind of near the book drop. We kept this mechanical space the same footprint as the previous design. There is a really good chance that that will reduce and hopefully give us more flexibility there. Any questions on site design?
Where's designated staff parking?
So is the designated staff parking where you're circling right now?
Yes, absolutely. That's this sidewalk, we'll show you on the floor plan. This sidewalk would connect to the staff entrance right here.
Okay, that's not bad.
It's significantly better than the previous site plan. It's just not the north parking that you guys were hoping.
What's the that little thing that looks like a closet on the edge of the property next to the
we have thought through dumpster location and tried out a couple different places on site. That's what that represents.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, what is up by the children's patio? It looks like a divider, and then there's like the big rectangles. Are those green space?
Yeah, let me. We again, apologies on color. We were trying to go for speed rather than graphical content. Again, because we're not necessarily presenting to the public. Trying to mark up where the green spaces would be.
Okay.
It never works
Yeah.
when you want it to.
No, it doesn't. And I'm just highlighting the patio. Wendy, to answer your question, this right here would be a planter. We took the concepts from the previous design of the planters being right up against the building and tried to pull it away to become a part of the barrier between the patio and the building. That's what that L-shaped thing represents. These lines right here represent railings, essentially to enclose that patio. Yes, we want the public to be able to go out and enjoy the patio, but we don't want them to be able to walk away with books easily. All of these blue shapes represent the green space. We've added a lot of pavement right next to the patio, simply because maybe there are activities or events that you want to do on an uncovered portion as opposed to just under the covered area. Did that answer all your questions?
Yes, and I like that that's going to be covered.
Yeah. Were there any other questions on the site plan as far as layout or locations?
I did
Okay.
wonder, originally the children's area was going to be in the front. So does this mean you're moving it to the back?
Well, let me jump right in. We'll get to that here on the floor plan. The reason it's really important that the site plan be set today, Paragon needs to send a diagram to the geotechnical engineer tomorrow so that they can do drilling and boring operations at the end of this month. That gives us the data we need back at the end of January. That's why the site plan of all the things we're showing you is the most important to receive acceptance, approval, or acknowledgement from Barry Lawrence. Jumping directly to your question, thank you, Tanner. Directly to your question, that children's area is on the southeast corner with direct access. That patio has access from both kind of the adult lounge or stacks area and from the children's. What we found when we had tried an iteration where there were 2 outdoor patios is that they get very small, and combining them into one and allowing you to do maybe a large children's activity on the patio made more sense than separate.
I like that better than having, before the children's were going to be seen from the parking lot.
Yes.
And so this, I think, might be a better plan than people peering in and being creepy.
Yeah, we've tried to keep the bones and the structure from the previous design, but improve upon a lot of those things that we just didn't have the flexibility to do in the previous design with the site. As far as the colors and what they represent, they're basically our ability to organize space. These colors match up with the master plan so that Monet and the master plan all have the same appearance. That's what those mean. We've retained the kind of the front entryway as far as bathrooms, the single bathrooms for the library area, coffee, community, and kitchen area. One of the things we've added is a storage room off of the community room that allows you to store the furniture that you would have in the community room somewhere out of sight as opposed to inside the room. We had the flexibility this time around to do that. The computer area, with that storage room, we got the opportunity to kind of almost look like we're cutting into that volume for the computers. So they're still visually accessible computer stations, but they're carved out of the community room volume, so they feel protected. Orange represents kind of the circulation throughout and the stacks areas. We've oriented the stacks to be visible from the circulation desk. We're calling attention to this particular point because from that point, there are only a handful of areas that you cannot see within the library. So anybody that walks to this point should be able to supervise the entire footprint of the building without leaving the desk.
That's
I know that's a concept that we've talked about before, but we were able to actually show a representation of that.
Very important.
Yeah. We moved the study rooms and the meeting rooms up near the staff area. They didn't work in the previous iterations. We weren't exactly happy that we then had to put them off of a corridor. But what we've done, and we've talked obviously about supervisions of the study room, what we're proposing is glass from the library side into the study rooms, glass on the corridor side of the study rooms, and then exterior windows. These would not necessarily be full height, but you could walk right up to this wall on the library side and see all the way through to the exterior. And the idea there is that you can monitor those rooms so that nobody's doing anything they shouldn't be, but also shows the use of those spaces. So when the public's using them, people see that there's actually interest in using those rooms, and hopefully that actually increases usage. All that kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Staff area, we tried to put the staff restroom and the mechanical room together, workroom centralized and circulation desk. We moved the office a little bit differently than we had before. One of the benefits of this time around is that we've been able to lay out the building footprint on a structural grid as opposed to what we did last time, which was the focus on the pretty end product. This time there's actually thinking on these walls line up to make structure. And so some of the decisions for the placement of spaces have to do with structural efficiency.
When they go out and get the books out of the book drop, where are they bringing them back into the building?
So that's a great question. Good catch. We've at least thought through that the sidewalk needed to connect to the book drop, but all the connections to the building don't lead to the staff entrance. We're going to need to add a connection.
Because that's a long, long haul for those books. They could be bringing a lot of books every day.
And it needs to be a covered entrance to the office area too. There's nothing worse than going to a book drop when it's pouring down rain. So you have to have a covered area if you're going to use a sidewalk as the entrance to the building for the book drop.
Sure. Well, and I think we placed it here in the previous design iteration simply because you've kind of got the drive-through and the book drop on the same circulation drive. We can relocate that easily now, especially, again, we just kept it from the previous design. That I think possibly over on this side would make a lot more sense now.
Yes, it would. Thank you.
Would you point out where the staff entrance is again, please?
Yes. So if you imagine staff parking on the east property line, they're going to walk down this sidewalk past the patio to this area. This area right here on that kind of dashed section. Come on. There we go.
Show us on the other one.
Right, connects to this exterior door, which would come to this corridor. That allows them to enter the back side of the building and then into the workroom.
So if the book drop was over on this, somewhere over here, it would be better.
Absolutely. It doubles up the purpose, the function.
Okay, I'm assuming that we're having a lot of security lighting on that end of the building. That is a really hidden spot for the staff to come in if it's dark, or go out if it's dark.
Sure. We will have site lighting and lighting on the exterior of the building. We just need to make sure that we talk to the construction manager about efficient ways of doing that. Site lighting can get pricey pretty quick because those fixtures are very expensive. Light fixtures on the building are much more affordable.
As long as it's a safe entrance, because it gets very dark.
So can the van back up to that door?
We hadn't, I apologize. We haven't been able to have these kinds of discussions with Gina and Joyce. The idea is that the drive-through for patrons could also potentially be utilized as the drop-off for the truck, or that eastbound traffic here on this side of the tiny little island you could still bring materials across. We've intentionally left a cutout in the island here for car queuing on the drive-through, not only for truck deliveries, but also if somebody's in the queue and they want to get out, they're not trapped.
So basically, we need to go through this again. I mean, this is just the preliminary anyway.
Right. And this stems, again, it stems from not being able to go through this design with you. As far as, is the building located on the site where we want it? And in all of our analysis, moving the building, our site still has constrained us. Our only ability to move is east-west at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it's fine as far as that goes. Yeah, where are the buildings?
I mean,
What-
where it goes.
Alex, this gray area in the children's area that has an outside door, what is that?
It's another mechanical room. What we were identifying or trying to identify was the location of electrical or water heaters right next to the major plumbing usage in the facility. So this mechanical room is located so that it can correspond to the outdoor mechanical equipment.
Okay.
This one would be about trying to potentially be the water source or hot water source or
So
electrical.
basically, it's just a service door.
Correct. And we try to put exterior doors on mechanical rooms and locate mechanical rooms on
Yeah.
exterior
all
walls
these.
so that your maintenance of that equipment can occur from an exterior door without interrupting any operations inside.
And we're still going to have a sink and so forth in the children's area like before.
Correct. And we've already thought through locating that on these mechanical room walls because you already have plumbing fixtures in close proximity to be efficient with location and systems.
Okay.
Those mechanical rooms, we've oversized them intentionally until we can get the engineers on board and they can give us more specific layout conditions. But we wanted to start big and then shrink as opposed to the opposite.
Mhm.
So today we just need to, like, we can go over this another time and like put finishing touches on it. We just need to decide if this is what the look, like where it sits on the site is where we want it.
Yeah, critical path is the site plan in a condition that we're okay with. And it sounds like the only major issues are book drop and site lighting.
And
More-
delivery.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few other things we have to tweak on this, but the
Right.
size of the building and where it sits on the lot, I think is okay.
Are we still at about 20,000 square feet?
Well, we wanted to report that we've been more efficient than the program on this current iteration. So we programmed 20,400 square feet, and that's where the $4 million was based off of. So far, we've been able to undershoot that by about 1,000 square feet, which is good.
And that's that's the size of the building that does not include the outdoor space, correct?
Absolutely. That intentionally does not include this space because you cannot consider it programmed space.
And one other question, I'm assuming based on our discussions about the branch that we liked up in Union City, that the patio will be covered.
Yes. So
It will also have railing.
yeah, I'm trying to
Yes.
find.
She said that, he said that, great, Joyce.
This area right here is that patio. So the roof of the facility comes out over it and it just becomes a part of that patio. There's no separate structure or covering for it. It just looks like a cutout of the building that's then exposed.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
And so this is the side elevate, the side, okay.
Right. That was looking from the east.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Katie, I just realized I called you Wendy earlier. As far as the design and the layout, as long as we've got major decisions nailed down. So let's say if we move children's, well, we don't really have the flexibility to move children's to the north, but let's say we did that, that would have a direct impact on the site plan. So as long as we've got really big picture decisions nailed down, we're okay to proceed forward. If what we're presenting is drastically out of character to what you want to see in the end, then we'll need to we need to look at a change in schedule.
Okay.
Looking at shelving, keep in mind again, Gina and Joyce have not seen any of this. Joyce, I tried to take the shelving standards that you and I talked about on the phone and plug them in the best I could. Keep in mind some of this is a little bit of guesswork, but the idea is that our shot in the dark shelving layout gets you to about 6,900 square feet of shelving length. We've set up these schedules specifically to show how much shelving is in which department, essentially. So, you know, you've got a little over 1,000, well, close to 1,000 square foot for teens. Staff area, this is the book sales area. Your stacks are about 4,900, and then children's is about 900. And again, this schedule should be reflected on the master plan as well, so that you have an idea of how much shelving each facility has.
Okay.
Exterior, we start with the front. We, again, tried to take as many cues from the previous design as we could. Obviously, without being that footprint and 2 stories, lots of things changed. The front entryway, I would say we're not entirely sold on that, but some of the other elements around it, I think, make sense. Because of the reduced building footprint, our roof slope got to increase because it was not having to span such a large distance, which means that it's higher slope, but possibly even a lesser height. That helped us considerably with the look because that roof volume gets a little more typical, I would say. Let's see. On the side, again, those railings for the patio, tried to keep that material palette around very similar. So brick and stone, the only exposed or flat brick would be for where the signage goes, metal panel and stone, and then alternating some of those materials across the outside to give it interest. The windows really correspond to what's going on in the interior. I think there's still some tweaks that need to happen on windows, but for the most part, they're at least identified appropriately to the floor plan and what's going on inside. We've got, I think, this says 16 feet clear on the drive-through. I think once we start factoring in structure, that would be 14 feet clear. That's 2 foot taller than most typical drive-throughs. Again, the intention would be trucks. We wanted to leave the flexibility if maybe there's a door off of staff and deliveries to the site just happened under this canopy as opposed to from the drive.
Alex?
Yeah.
On the front view, on the far left, is that another door?
Yes. So yeah, that door right there is from the community room, and we tried to keep, because the community room is a large occupancy count room, we have to do very specific fire egress doors. I think we're still going to have to look at this because it's not quite where it needs to be as far as distance between these 2 doors for code. But we've at least thought through that we need 2 of them and that potentially one of them comes out to the south. The idea there also is that those doors allow for people to bring things from these parking spaces into that community room when they have meetings. I don't know why I have a mask on. Everybody else bailed on me. That's what that door is.
Well, thank you, Alex. It does not look like a prison.
I'm glad. That's good to hear. We try very hard not to do that.
You got rid of the watchtower.
Yeah, we tried again because the building came from 2 stories down. The roof plane got significantly shorter. It allowed us to do less there so that we're not, the entrance doesn't look puny in comparison to the rest of the building.
And we still can have something grand there too.
So that's the exterior. And like I said, while we would have loved to have shown this to you in color or 3D, the push was just to try and work as effectively as possible now to catch up to where we were.
There's the prairie windows.
Yep, those are the community room, clear story, trying to keep windows from down low, still getting natural light into the community room, but not blowing out screens or presenters or those things. Same with the staff and break room areas. The idea is that by the drive-through, you're looking at patrons and they can see in, but for those rooms where you want a little more privacy, it's just natural light. Are there any concern? Again, it's not, Gina and Joyce haven't seen this. There's no design iterations beyond us just kind of working in a vacuum. Are there any major concerns with the look and appearance of the building?
There are a lot of doors.
Well, yeah, but you got a lot of building.
I know.
I think you have to you have to have a certain amount of egress to have that size footprint. We've never had it before, so to us, all of it looks big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot, but I realize
twice as big as as Cassville. So
over twice as big as Cassville.
Well,
all
as
on one
a
level.
parent, are all those doors gonna be, I'm assuming the ones in the community room will be locked unless somebody is using them. They're more like fire exits, or what would they be?
Yeah, you nailed it. All of the doors, with the exception of the front door, would be egress only, with the exception of this door having a scan card or key access for staff. Everything else is fire egress only. The only door that might allow the public access is if somebody leaps this railing during business hours and this door is unlocked for operations. We still need to talk through what this railing is, how much of a barrier versus security you want it to be. And we still need to add an egress only gate to these railings, because if somebody comes out for fire, they still need to be able to leave that patio for egress. It would be alarmed or sound or something, but not ingress. So Regina, to answer your question, yes, there's a lot of doors. They're code required for fire and they're not meant for public entrance.
I understand that. It just looked like lots of doors that you have to make sure are locked.
Well, and what Gina and Joyce have identified is that the building will have access control and electronic security. And that allows us to set up schedules on those doors so that they lock and unlock at scheduled times, as opposed to somebody physically go around and unlock and lock all those doors.
Okay.
Trying to remove human error from the equation.
And what if the power fails?
Yep. So there's 2 conditions in power failure for electronic systems. You can set it up to either be what they call safe or secure, which is just translation for locked or unlocked, and we get to designate what happens. There may be some doors that we want to designate unlocked in that scenario. Most of the time it's locked.
Okay.
Well, most of those should have panic bars on the inside, so electronic.
And we're thinking with this scenario that we would have a dedicated children's person to be in that area.
Yes.
That person would always be.
Under this layout with the wet area potentially up against the mechanical room door or mechanical room wall, what we would do is put that circulation desk somewhere out here so that it's almost like a miniature library where you come into the front door, you're kind of greeted and seen by whoever's at the circulation desk, and that they can have visual supervision throughout this area.
And that big blank area there would be for the children's programming.
Correct. The other, and I apologize, Carrie's not here. We kind of went over her available time to meet with us. We've intentionally left a lot of the children's area open as best we can for programming, but also that she may be able to do some kind of feature or reading area or furniture area or something special in the children's area. We talked a lot, and I think back in 2019 about adding some kind of children's area feature. And that's the reasoning behind that open space.
And a lot of that would all be movable furniture so that you could configure that room different ways depending on what you're doing, but it would all be movable.
Right, and that's something we need to work through with you on what elements of design you want. Is it flexibility? Is it ceilings or flooring that identifies zones, or just true flexibility that it's a blank slate move around? And again, we just haven't gotten to that detail level, and we weren't there in the previous design either.
And I believe, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but the wall that leads into the adult area would be glass or windows of some kind, right?
The north wall of the children's area.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. We've
There, you can see it now.
yeah,
Okay.
We thought through, hey, you guys have asked for glass from the stacks area to the children's area. Joyce, we've located the half height shelving up against those windows so you can still see in. We tried to incorporate those design elements from your previous feedback.
So as long as we want to keep that general look of the children's area, then that won't affect any of the blueprint of where the building is located.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is not a set in stone floor plan. There will obviously be shifts to these things. One of the discussions we want to have with Gina and Joyce is the linear feet of shelving and stacks. Just because of how circulation lays out, it comes to 2 stacks areas. I think we need to over program or close to program with the shelving space. So is there an opportunity to reduce building footprint and reduce stacks? And is that appropriate, or do you need those areas? Again, that's not something that we need to talk about today, but we've designed the floor plan in a way that gives us that flexibility in the future.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we've got the floor space, then we can configure the shelving pretty much any way we need it for a particular area, as long as the floor space is there.
Right. We specifically wanted to show the shelving on an angle because it starts to tie to the supervision from the circulation desk as a priority.
Yeah.
That's different in children and teens because it's just a different kind of space. Teens, you can stand here and see down the rows. There's those children.
A lot of shelving wouldn't have to be long rows. You could be intermittent rows.
Right.
You have a break in between them, things like that. As long as the floor space is there, the shelving's not a big problem.
Right. Well, and again, we haven't been able to talk with you folks on what zones are where in the children's area. This thing could flip to where all of the shelving is on the north end of that room, and there's flexibility there.
Yeah.
One concern I have, and I don't know if this would affect the blueprint or not, but when we're talking about the children's programming, we're talking about, say, 100 parents and kids coming in, and there's not really a clear, like we'll be all through the adult section to get to that door. So that's just one thought I have, is that going to be disruptive, for other people?
Well, for big programs like that, more than likely you're going to have it in a conference room anyway.
Yeah.
You would not set it up in the children's area. The children's area programming, what we call programming, is just the week-to-week programs that our librarians doing with just the kids. If you're having a big program, you're like summer reading, and you're having a demonstrator, and you're having people like that, you're going to use the conference room area anyway. So
Okay.
everything would be pointed towards that when they come in.
Okay, I was thinking about like using the outdoor space, like during the summer reading program. See, that's on the back side, which would be more, easily
Right.
accessible to the children's area. So if it's Jesse Craft and send them out to the patio, see, all of that would be in the children's area.
Right. And that's why you have to have that doorway, but it kind of depends on what it's all depending on what type of program you're doing, as to where you're going to use that space and how much space you need. But most of our big things that we would do indoors would more than likely be at on the conference area.
Okay.
Alex, what on the meeting room side, you have two green spaces. I know one's the kitchen. What's the other? Oh, coffee bar.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We're treating that as that vending area
That we talked about. Yeah.
The other thing, and Jessica made some really good points on that, and why the door to the community room is centered there as opposed to pushed closer to the entryway. That coffee bar becomes the buffer and transition space between an event and leaving the building. So you can have those small conversations and interactions outside of whatever event is going on in the community room.
Okay. And it's still all accessible with the library closed.
I'm sorry, I lost that last bit.
It's all accessible with the library actually being closed.
Yes. So, and that was going to be my comment to Katie about as far as getting people to the children's area for programming. That door would be shut down after hours and allow for the occupancy of this area separate from the rest of the library. The only way I can think of getting large amounts of people to the children's area without going through the library would be an exterior door. And now we've gone from one public entrance to two. And I think it's just a pro-con or a decision by the library on what the preference would be.
I wasn't thinking another door. I was just thinking about the flow of traffic in the front door and straight to the children's area. Because when children get to the library, it's usually like a mad dash to the children's area. That's where they run.
Running.
Sure. Well, and maybe we reconfigure this entrance so that it's oriented towards the front door. What we were trying to do was, number one, just start to introduce some angles, but also orient it towards the circulation desk so that, the stacks make that a little bit difficult, but it would be somewhat easier to see into the children's area from other places in the facility.
I don't think it's that bad. There's that much area to cover that they're going to be that disruptive. The reading area is over on the right side there beyond the children's area. So they may be a little disruptive for a minute or two, or maybe even 10, but the people are going to be, if they're sitting there, they're not going to be
In the way.
Yeah.
They're not on the way to the children's area.
Kind of your adult sitting reading areas, this lounge and the coffee bar. Coffee bar is meant to be open to circulation, people, movement, noise. The lounge is kind of that remote or quieter area, and putting that next to the patio with exterior views seemed to make the most sense.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do too.
I'm so excited. I just can't hardly stand it.
Thank you. That makes us feel pretty good. I can't
I
see
like
Jessica.
it.
I'm hoping she's smiling.
I do too.
I like it.
Okay.
I think the site, I mean, obviously Joyce and I, there's going to be things that we want to tweak
Yes.
along. So I don't see anything that
No.
says we couldn't tweak what's already there without making significant changes to the site plan
Right.
or making,
Yeah, we felt confident that from the conversations that we've had with you in the past, that we kind of understood what you valued and what you were looking for in a way that
So we have
If you hadn't done that-
34 parking spaces and 6 for staff.
Yes, and the proportions of that can change. That one is not a very hard and fast number. We just kind of picked some numbers, honestly. If we want to make 8 staff, 4 staff, 12 staff, that's fine. We were going more for, here's the minimum number required parking spaces.
Yeah, we're going to have more staff parking, I think.
Right. And we can always go more than zoning requires. We wanted to go with the least because it's the least cost. And then if there's intentional reasons why, well, we just need 4 more or 2 more or whatever that is, we can do it. And that, based on that previous site plan, we can add full parking along Park Street, full parking along this property line.
Options that we didn't have before.
Exactly. We were handcuffed previously just based on site footprint. And that wasn't a bad thing. It was just, it drove us.
I think we need more parking on the front too, because you want to be able to park by the entry. I don't know, can you park along Park Street?
It's I don't think you can park along Airport. The width of Park Street, having been to the site and knowing where I parked just to walk around, yeah, I think there's parallel parking along Park. It's not striped, but the road is wide enough.
Because I can see with this design, I see people parking on Park Street because that'll be closer to the entrance than over here on the north side.
Yeah. And maybe we look at reducing the parking spaces over here and putting them along Park Street, or just increasing the number entirely.
I would say increasing the number entirely. I would think I'm going to anticipate this building's really going to be used. So more parking would be better in my opinion. So, and I'm assuming part of those parking spaces right in front of the door are going to be handicapped anyway.
Yeah, I apologize. You can't see it because the label goes right over it. But this little striped area is that ADA in between parking spaces, which would make the ones on the east and west the ADA spots.
Because we're going to need more than 2 handicap spaces. So
we can obviously, we can go above the number. This is just the code required minimum.
Okay. We can work that out. We don't have to do that now. So make it so.
I think it looks good the way it sits on the property. Yeah.
So with that in mind, are we okay to send this? Well, we need to do some dimensions for them, but we're okay to send this to the geotechnical engineer.
Fine with me.
I would say so.
Okay.
Do it.
Excellent.
I don't think do that.
And I don't think we need a motion for it.
No, it's normally it would come from you, Gina, and Joyce in a meeting. This is how it played out.
Okay.
That's all we have to present on the Monet Library. Any closing comments before I jump to master plan?
No.
Okay. On the master plan, Gina, we talked about adding the maintenance facility and the Monet Library, the current Monet branch converting into main offices. We talked about the potential for additional services. On the timelines and schedules with Tanner and Jessica being pulled off of the master plan and me being the only person on it, there were time efficiencies that basically zeroed out any change for those added to it. So those have been added to the master plan, no charges.
Okay.
On the flip side of that, because I'm the only person working on the project, I'm also now a bottleneck. And I just have to apologize that personal and some work things came up so that I was not able to generate what I would have liked to as far as the master plan. I just apologize now. This floor plan, what you're seeing, I've gone alphabetical order of branches. What you're seeing is the shell knob previous floor plan. The idea there is that this becomes the jumping off point for the prototype library branch floor plan that would go in at Aurora. Normally, I would sit down with Gina and Joyce and try and work through what we want to tweak about it. the best I can say is that we need to work with the two of them and figure out what about this plan we really want to change, add, subtract, tweak to become that prototype.
And let me just jump in for a minute, is that we've pretty much decided that with Aurora, we're going to have to be in a different location. So we had asked Alex to come up with a prototype of, if we build new branch libraries, something we could just jump off of as a starting point, and we don't have to do a new redesign every single time.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't bring context to that. When we looked at the Aurora facility, the Carnegie structure, the additional structure, the site, there's really no flexibility with efficiency of funds to make that facility into what you want, and a new facility is the most cost-effective way of doing that.
And most of you who have been on the board for a while know right now Aurora is a money pit. It just has an open, wide funnel that we just keep doing this into.
Okay, Jessica just messaged me, said she had to step away.
Okay.
But when we're saying master plan here, like, this is just in the future.
Right. Yes.
So we're not planning to do this simultaneously with Monette.
No.
Much later project.
Yes.
I think the only two projects that Gina and Joyce have even tentatively identified for simultaneous would be the Monette office, maybe towards the tail end of construction on the new branch.
Yeah.
And
Mount Vernon.
Yeah, Mount Vernon and the addition there. And I have that to show you. I think we originally started with two of the potential branches having a new facility, and in looking at them, only the Aurora branch makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize, I can't remember what that other one was. But again, we would have tried to have shown you the prototype floor plan. We haven't been able to necessarily talk with Gina and Joyce on what is desired. Next up is Cassville. This is the existing floor plan. Again, we've tried to categorize all of the spaces by departments, essentially. We've got the shelving count of 4,000 linear feet based on the existing. Gina and Joyce, again, we'll want to check these shelves, existing shelves with you. It's a shot in the dark based on some pictures, so there's no physical measurements of the shelves. But the elements that Gina, Joyce, and what is the term? Supervisor, what's the title for the person that oversees the Cassville?
The supervisor.
Supervisor. We spoke with the supervisor and some of the folks that work there, and the biggest things for them was meeting rooms and study spaces, changing the circulation desk because people seem to walk behind the desk. The challenges of the children and the teens area, and then the mural along the workroom wall. Genealogy kind of being a landlocked room and no space to spread out and do research or projects. And then also just a general increase to the stacks and seating areas. We talked about maybe 4 or 5 different ideas on how to come off of the building. And then Tanner had the brilliant idea of doing an addition off of only the first floor of Cassville. Come on. That addition would come off of the west end of the building and outward, and then the area underneath would become like the library. We've done some preliminary studies on structure and roof drainage, and it's actually possible. So Gina and Joyce, you haven't heard that from us yet, but the addition is actually possible off of Cassville.
That is cool.
What they're doing is the similar concept of seating up against the windows, looking at kind of spacing out the stacks, but then also orienting the stacks with the circulation desk Same concept as before, supervision. We didn't want to show these shelves on an angle because it just doesn't make sense with the floor plan. We can obviously investigate that with you if it's something that's wanted, but it just didn't make sense. The teens area moved from kind of that no man's land in front of genealogy, and we wrapped the stacks around it. And then there's a small seating area for teens in the center. The idea there is that you'd have the teens collection up close where you're having supervision from the circulation desk, but that also they're somewhat buffered by the shelving from everybody else. So they get a little bit of privacy, still very good supervision from the circulation desk, but maybe that will encourage them to actually utilize the space. We opened up genealogy and used some of the other, welcome back. I was just giving you some praise on the addition idea for Cassville. Gina, Joyce, and the board, one of the things that we did on the first floor that we had not talked about before was increasing the footprints of the restrooms. None of the restrooms in the Cassville facility are ADA accessible. And one of the things that we wanted to do was increase those rooms to do so. Because we increased the ADA or increased the footprint ADA for this one, it made sense then to change genealogy and to locate the study and the meeting rooms over there because there's renovation occurring anyway. For the most part,
then we get a full-size toilet, right?
Exactly. The renovation then only occurs in these locations. So you're not renovating the entire facility, you're renovating pockets. And while the entire facility will look and function differently, you're not spending money everywhere. If that makes sense.
Yes.
I will be very honest, Tanner and I are very skeptical about locating stacks here. We really don't have a great idea for what could be located there. We would love to work with you on figuring that out. We did add a wall between the children's and the staff area, again, just to kind of push for discussion on whether that should be walled off.
That's where magazines are right now.
It starts to set up circulation paths through the facility in very specific ways. Obviously, this one would go around the circulation desk, but all of the circulation for the facility now is very easily seen, identified. You don't need signage. You just walk in and you know where you can go. The orange areas to the north and south of circulation desk could be seating or possibly some smaller bookshelves for materials. Maybe this area right here becomes book sales. We placed the meeting and the study rooms here. Could be a controversial decision, especially because of the connection from the workroom to the circulation desk. What we think this has accomplished, or what we hope this has accomplished, is the separation of the workroom from the library. It truly feels separate from and private from the library, so people won't be walking into the workroom, and hopefully that solves some of the problem with the circulation desk. We also pulled the circulation desk off of these areas so that you get truly walking area around it, again with the intention of keeping people from walking behind the desk because they can go all the way around.
I know this isn't like a literal everything there diagram, but I would think they need a lot more computer space than that at Cassville, as much computer usage as they have. Would that be something maybe that would go on each side of the circulation desk? Because they use them a lot, it seems like to me.
There's actually, you have teens in the wrong spot. The teens are actually on the north part of the children's area. And where you have teens is actually where there's a computer bank right now.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that changes my response. That's a good thing. I was going to say that there were only 4 computers in this zone now, but knowing that there's more up here, I apologize, Gina, Joyce, we lost all of the pictures of the Cassville facility, so we only have the floor plans. We'll work with you on what happens.
Yeah. There's actually, I think, 10 public computers But I
you
think
have a
that's
pond.
easy enough to add computer space. And especially with people now using more of their own computers, as long as we have good Wi-Fi and a place for people to plug in, I think that's good too. So
To address that, that could mean that this becomes another secondary computer area. The idea was that if we can keep the existing computer area, we're changing electrical and data systems as little as possible. If there's already power and data over here for computers, moving it to the location is very simple.
Well, there are computers in the children's areas too.
yeah.
Yes. Well, what we've tried to do is when we walled off children's, move the computers outside so that you didn't have adult computer use inside the children's area
Right.
for all the obvious reasons.
Is it important that the meeting space is central, right by the circulation desk? I wonder if it could be moved over here where the stacks are that you don't know what to do with.
Yeah, we originally had the study rooms and the meeting rooms down here. When we increased the restroom, we thought, well, if we're changing genealogy, we're changing workroom, we're changing the restroom, maybe these rooms can be that buffer between the workroom and the circulation desk. The meeting room, I think, could easily move the study areas. I think those make some sense, especially because we were talking through one of the study rooms being off of genealogy.
Alex, the purple meeting room, is that more the size of a small conference room?
Yes.
Okay. Like for 8 people, maybe?
It would be tight with 8. I think comfortably you're somewhere between 4 and 6.
Okay, so it's just an oversized study room.
Yes.
Okay.
And the idea there is also same concept from the new Monet branch. There's still a window from the workroom into the meeting room and a window from the library into the meeting room. So you can still get visual supervision through, especially what's going on in here.
Okay.
It doesn't totally isolate the workroom.
Okay. Be good.
With that, existing was 4,000 linear feet. We've now added over 1,300 linear feet of shelving to the facility.
Okay. Yes.
It's
and again,
needed.
yeah, that's not, there's no pros, cons, or thought. It's literally just, here's what we can fit. Is that needed? Is it not?
And then we could do
we'll work with you on that.
children's area there as well.
Any other thoughts on Cassville?
As long as I don't have to move books, I'm fine with it.
Joyce,
No,
we'd love to work.
no more of that stuff. No.
Yep. Joyce, we'd love to work with you. I know there was the concern on floor outlets in relation to the actual shelving. That's something we'll need to work through with this plan.
Yeah, absolutely, because that really messed, we lost a lot of it because of where the architect put things and then where the shelving had to go. So,
Right.
yeah.
This is the most efficient. It doesn't mean that it won't change.
That's good.
Any other discussion on that? Any, short of the computer area, are there any tweaks you want to see to this?
Where's that mural gonna go that's on the wall?
It's
So
already there.
To address
It's not
that,
there?
we intentionally pulled all of
Right
the
there.
stacks off of it so that maybe the activity area for the kids occurs here so that you're not blocking the mural and it's still accessible. We didn't really have a strong feeling on it. It was more of an attempt to address that issue.
Okay.
We learned and heard quite a bit on that.
Yeah.
So did we.
Okay, I'll move on to the next branch, or not branch. This is the prototype maintenance facility. What we did is we took the maintenance area from the previous new Monet branch floor plan and turned it into a pre-engineered metal building. The idea there is that you can drop this on any site that's big enough to accept it, and you just have a maintenance facility. In addition, it's a pre-engineered metal building because it's the most cost-effective way that you can get that function out of a structure. Maybe there's some existing structures that could be renovated, but you at least have an idea of how much square footage is needed for those functions. What we've done is basically, you can kind of see these little areas here. That's the superstructure for the pre-engineered metal building. Those are set up on very specific spacings to be the most cost effective that we can get them. And then we just frame off of those bays to carve out specific spaces. So locker room and bathroom for maintenance and the maintenance office. It's oversized, but it's first iteration design. The two bays above this line would become the workshop. So this is the open floor space for tools, equipment, projects, and process, and locating that right next to the office made sense. Maintenance truck bays, these are the vehicles for the maintenance folks when they go off site. So locating that close to there. We had a bay for lawn equipment. Gina and Joyce, one of the things that we kind of stumbled across as we were talking was you said, well, we want lawn equipment to be able to be utilized by the maintenance folks, but we realized that in the previous plan, there wasn't any square footage for that. So we've added a bay for lawn equipment or the maintenance of lawn equipment here. One of the questions that we had, because I know you guys looked at a bookmobile, a size of bookmobile, possibly even just removing the box truck. We have these two bays for those vehicles to park. Is there any of those that we can reduce or eliminate?
And take out the bookmobile.
Okay.
Because we've decided we don't want to do that. It'd be the size of a box truck, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
that eliminates.
But now we still would need the bookmobile store. I still would leave the office and storage because the box truck becomes the bookmobile. Does that make sense?
It does. Here, I'll reverse this a little bit. You're removing one of these bays.
Yes.
And even though this is bookmobile, it is just a box truck.
Yes.
Got it. And then those last two bays become bookmobile storage, the office for the bookmobile staff, and then parking for that vehicle.
Yes.
It's a fairly simple structure, but that's what it's intended to be. It's really a placeholder that allows us to estimate how much it would cost to build new, how much it would cost to drop onto a different site, making sure that the facility has all of the spaces that you need. This could be easily reproportioned to an existing facility if you found the right one. Any tweaks or comments on this particular one?
No.
Nope.
Next up, we have Marionville. Again, this is the existing. The two kind of design elements that were identified to us was the circulation desk, same problem as Cassville, people coming behind the desk, but then also that the patio is uncovered, which means that it doesn't get a whole lot of utilization for programming. What we've then proposed is the circulation desk. What we've done is taken the existing desk and taken some sections out of it. So you're not even buying a new circulation desk. You're just modifying the one you already have, moving it backwards and eliminating the two shelves that were behind that desk. Come on. There we go. Those shelves kind of promote that circulation behind the desk. And moving it backwards, smaller, and getting rid of that, we think will help solve that problem. As a result, we pulled the computer area over almost as a way of creating a barrier to the circulation desk. That effect would only be done by furniture. There's no changes to the building there. Any comments on circulation desk?
Mm-mm.
Then the outdoor patio area, what we've proposed, and I've got a 3D view of this because it's important, just adding 3 columns and then coming off of the existing walls to make a roof structure over that, make this covered and allow for programming and weather events. That addition would be very, very simple. We're not trying to do anything other than function. The gable end there on that corner, it's because that radius section of concrete is a very odd shape to wooden trusses and 90-degree corners. And the slope off of this pad drops off very considerably for water right outside of the concrete. So we've tried to keep all of the columns, all of the structure, all of the addition inside of that footprint because it makes it feasible and less costly. We're proposing not to just have just 2 planes off of this, because when this 45-degree cut comes in and you don't have a gable end, it just looks wrong. It looks really poor. So we're proposing putting that on there, especially because you maybe put some signage or lighting or something on here that becomes part of identity for the library district.
Yeah, I think that looks good.
I like that.
And again, we're not trying to go extravagant. It's just the simplest touch that we can do to get covered patio.
Okay.
Anything else on Marionville?
No.
Next up was Miller, and Gina and Joyce had directed us to look into book lockers, remote control of access to the facility, a whole bunch of different options.
I'd say
We
no.
looked into that, and the dollar figures to make that happen were above 6 figures. So it immediately became a non-option. Gina and Joyce, what we ended up doing wasn't abandoning the Miller project for development, but what we did is we used the small footprint library to be the test for a lot of the ideas that you see in other master plan facilities, also to create the graphical standards for the master plan. So that's why we actually did stuff to Miller. It wasn't to spend money. The ideas that we have for Miller are really simple. Pull the children's area from behind up front so it's next to the window. You get to see use of the facility from the street. Pull the lounge from this area over here. Again, same thing. You get windows to lounge and you see the utilization of the facility. Keep computers where it is, maybe grow it a little bit, and then reconfigure the stacks. One of the things that we talked about with Gina and Joyce, especially at Pierce City, is that when you walk into the door of the libraries and all of the stacks are oriented 90 degrees or perpendicular to the way that you walk, it feels very, for lack of a better term, claustrophobic, or it shuts you down in terms of knowing how you go through the space, how big the space is, and understanding where you can go without needing any signage. By orienting all of the shelving north-south in terms of Miller, you can see almost the entire facility, where you can go, where everything's located without any instructions whatsoever. So all of the changes to Miller are non-structural, no wall changes, no, the only thing that really costs is either purchasing new stacks or moving stacks.
Works for me. I like the children's area up front much better. And then they could use the lounge area for part of their programming too.
Right. The one thing I'll note is that there's only a 30 linear feet increase in shelving between the old one and the new one. Miller just doesn't have that kind of flexibility to put a lot of shelving into.
You're not going to need a lot of shelving.
We've been reducing shelving, so it's fine.
Any other comments on Miller or directions to go? Okay, one of the things I'll throw out, when we were looking at stacked shelving lengths, and this was part of that kind of using Miller as the test case for a lot of the ideas that we applied to other branches, we looked at how to get the most linear feet of shelving in the smallest square footage footprint. And the way to do that is to have single depth shelving against the wall and then double stacked shelving, the circulation space away from it. So even just applying this idea to any of the other branches would increase the linear feet of shelving.
That's basically what we, yeah, that's basically what we want.
Yeah.
And it mirrors, Joyce, what you've been telling us since Shell Knob, which is put the shelving up against the walls.
He listens to us.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
So that's a concept, and you'll see that concept in the new Monet branch library where we're trying to apply it. You'll see it in any of the other branches we touch. Please let us know if you want us to apply this concept to any of the branches that we're not showing it, because it wasn't talked about in some of those cases, but could help. The Miller branch, one of the other things we talked about doing was identity. And this is the existing frontage on that building. What we talked about with Gina and Joyce was a change in signage, a change in lighting, putting Barry Lawrence Library's colors on the facade in some way, so that you can get a low dollar value item that can make a big difference in the feel or appearance or interaction with the community. So signage and then maybe some paint would be bare minimum or a maximum on what we would do to the exterior. Anything on that?
Nope.
Okay. Next up is Mount Vernon. When we talked about the Mount Vernon facility, there were lots of things that came up. I would summarize them by saying that changing the layout of the facility was one of the important master plan issues, but also the addition of more meeting room space, a break room for staff, more public restrooms, and just increasing the amount of stacks area. We went through a couple iterations of design, and what we've come up with is not what we talked about or where we were assuming we were going, but we think it meets all of the needs that were addressed, especially with the limitations on site. This would necessitate buying that house property to the west in order to increase the parking so that this facility would be appropriately served. But it does provide all the programmatic elements. I will be fully transparent and say that I completed this design during the CMR interviews on Tuesday. So please be kind. It's not the most fully fleshed out of ideas, but it at least addresses the minimums of what was supposed to be there. We've demolished part of the workroom, pulled the circulation desk back. It's the exact same circulation desk. What we think that does is starts to set up circulation paths through the facility. Same concepts, you can walk in and know where you need to go without any signage or direction. That circulation desk being pulled back, it reduces the workroom a little bit, but it gives us the space to put the break room on the outside. One of the things that Gina, Joyce, and the supervisor identified is that that exterior wall, after it was hit with a car, is insulated quite poorly now. And if we build the addition off of that wall and put in new exterior walls, that room will finally be insulated correctly and protected correctly. The meeting rooms, you can't see it because just the graphical style of what we're doing with the master plans. But the idea is that these meeting rooms would be split by folding partition walls. What that would allow is that each one of these meeting rooms could operate independently or together in terms of a large community event or a small one. We've also tried to set it up in a way that this door and this door could be locked, and these meeting rooms could operate outside of library hours or after hours, and then this restroom facility serves those rooms at the same time. We had to put in another exterior door, and that's going to be somewhat expensive because it goes through the bermed side of the facility, but it has to do with fire egress. The travel distances from around this facility worked because they were going to this front door. Now that that front door is covered with an addition, you have to add another fire egress. What that set up though, is that it kind of made this nestled little spot up against the glass. And we thought moving the computers or lounge or something to this area that gets direct supervision from the circulation desk makes sense. In addition, we kind of applied that same concept from Miller where we put single bay shelving along the walls and then double stacked shelving in the kind
I
of main
think that's
area.
enough room for children.
We
Yeah.
orient those shelves to the circulation desk so that circulation can monitor this back corner without going anywhere. Same for these stacks. It's a little bit less effective, but angling those on a very high angle doesn't make sense. For the teens, we've provided the same thing, just rotating the shelving, supervision from circulation desk easily. Children's, you'll see this on Pierce City as well. Placing a few bookshelves along the perimeter of that area starts to protect the children's area without putting up a wall. It allows you to do programs or furniture or play space or those kinds of things in the children's area without double stacked shelves dominating the space.
Alex, I can already tell you that the children's area where you've got teens right now, it's all children's, and that space is too small. So if you take and put teens in the children's area, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to work. And they use for homeschooling, and a lot of their children's programs come directly off the children's area into the conference room. They can walk directly into that. That's a long way to take kids from there.
So is it fair to say that this entire area is children's? I know that includes this little bit here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that little blue spot is, I think, our computers right now.
Right. So then applying the, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Alex, and even now that space is too small.
Mm-hmm.
You could almost reduce the size of the genealogy room.
Mm-hmm.
You could.
Well, you
I
could,
agree.
but on the other hand, you've also got the equipment that's used in there. You've got your copiers, you've got the, the computer and everything they use for their, all of that stuff. I mean, it's an odd area. I think truthfully on this plan, I think we just need to get together and go over this all together, because I think there's a lot of this that won't work.
Right. Well, and what I would say is that the fixed areas of the restrooms, mechanical, that's driving a lot of how this floor plan is divided. We thought about maybe making genealogy a meeting room and moving it somewhere else. Maybe that moves down to where computers are now, but I think the common theme that we even had when we met on site is that there's more space needed than there is space available.
Yes.
And that's true no matter what we do. So there's a teeter-totter or a balance between footprint of the building on site, parking spaces, and what space is provided, because the facility utilization has vastly outpaced its footprint.
Exactly.
It sounds like we may need even more. And maybe this was the other facility that we were looking at a prototype library for. I don't know that we can put enough space on this site to meet the needs that you're looking for. We'll need to do an analysis on that.
Okay.
So we'll basically, not in a bad way, but we'll scrap this layout.
Yeah.
I think the layout's good, and I think your thoughts on it, Alex, were really good. It's just the reality of how that building's used.
Right.
But it is used. It's a heavily used branch. So they actually need the extra space.
They could.
Yeah. What I will say is that the entryway, how this addition looks is terrible, and that we'll need to work on what the building looks like after the addition.
Okay.
It functions in floor plan, but it will look atrocious.
Yeah.
Next up is Pierce City. When we talked about Pierce City, it was very light touches. It was finishes and updating it to the modern day. What we ended up doing was kind of applying those same concepts from Miller to here. And we moved, again, no walls, no system changes, just a change in furniture and layout and flow. And we think it accomplishes some of the other benefits that you see at other branches at Pierce City. We leave the lounge and the computer area alone. We reorient and pull the teen shelving off of the walls Again, that efficiency of linear feet of shelving to footprint. We kind of increase or add some shelving to this lounge area in front of the circulation desk. We flip the locations of stacks and children's, and we think that that gets the open space of the lounge, the seating, and the children in view of the front door. So that again allows for people to be pulled into the facility and feel free to walk through, as opposed to the hard barrier of the stacks that were oriented north-south over here. We kind of stole the idea from both the new MoNet branch and what I was showing you in Mount Vernon, orienting the stacks to the circulation desk to allow for supervision. It also accomplishes that people can walk through and immediately see how to navigate this space. One of the other things that Gina and Joyce had identified was the need for a covered entryway. And Marionville was simple. This is even simpler. It is literally just a little bump out that puts just a little bit of roof surface over the front door. It's the smallest touch, the least cost, the least intrusive that we can think of that accomplishes the need without looking like a tacked on fabric awning. Is that does that meet the needs, Gina and Joyce, that you were looking for?
Yeah, I think that's a great design, because it actually it actually is a design. The other one was just a flat surface. It had no personality. There was no way to get out of anything, even with the long, with the overhead. And the way that is, that's where you'd want more signage on the side of that building right there, something that draws people's attention. I think it looks great myself.
I do too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, that's what we're looking at for Core City to cover the entrance.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I think it looks really good, and it gives it some personality. I mean, it actually stands out, and the signage would need to be,
And it's
for it points
covered.
to the library. It tells everybody this is a library, and it does not now.
No.
Just has no personality.
Alex, could we also have a small cover over the door to the meeting room?
Well, I guess you could. I mean, you could do the same thing
I
with
think that lets you know that that's actually the main entrance.
right.
Yeah.
That's the only thing is that is the,
That's
because
true.
now you really don't. They have to walk up and decide which way
Yeah,
they go in the
right.
building.
You're right.
That's
Julie,
right.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it looks really good myself.
I have to agree. We had the similar thought of adding a cover, but this makes the front door very
Right.
easily understandable.
Accentuates it. Right.
Yeah, I think both of them would be confusing again.
Yep.
And it makes it not look like a bank building anymore.
Yeah.
Just
What
look
I
at
will,
the building.
say as an aside is I can understand why Pierce City as a facility drove you guys crazy. Having looked at the drawings, it was very difficult to model from. And I just, no, we're not going to do that.
Good, because yeah, it was not an easy project, period, for a building that's no bigger than it is.
Yeah. Even without your comments, just looking at the drawings, things became very apparent.
Yep.
Huh. Who was the architect for that?
I do not know
Yes.
off the top of my head.
Oh, Laura. Okay. So you
I'll
know.
tell you later.
Okay.
You can guess.
The last facility on the list, as far as documents to show, I have some Excel files for others, is the Shellnob facility. When we went through and we walked it with Regina, Gina, Joyce, and I think there was one other, it became very quickly apparent that Paragon getting involved in that branch is not a good idea. And I say that because it was built with community labor, donations. It accomplished and filled a need that was desperately there. But because it was self-performed, there's a lot of things that would have to occur to bring it up to what we, for legal and liability reasons, would have to include.
Mm-hmm.
Our recommendation to Gina and Joyce was, do not involve Paragon or design professionals in this facility. Self-perform the improvements to building systems and other pieces as you need without oversight, because even though it is, I believe, unincorporated without building code, because we are design professionals, we have to provide things at a certain level.
Alex, the building itself was built by a contractor.
Right.
It wasn't self-built.
But the renovation.
All the renovation, a lot of that, most of that was.
Right.
It was a hired job. It wasn't performed by
yeah.
two guys in there.
No,
volunteer labor.
that's not, I'm not saying that the quality of what was done was bad. It's that because it was done without a designer, things were done and decisions made that we would have to undo or spend a lot of money to change.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I am not throwing shade on what was done in any way. It performs as it needs to.
The one thing that I would like to see in Shell Knob is to have the current overhang removed and an awning put on with the library colors.
Sure.
Have the facade redone.
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely needs to be redone.
You know, it's just so that it's more appealing and a nice new sign.
Mhm.
That would be helpful.
Mhm.
That's something that we can get involved with because it's not interior building system related.
We have the pharmacy down the street that redid their facade, and it's beautiful. And they have a canvas awning to cover people as they're out on the street. But it's enough, you know. It makes a difference. It sets you apart.
What we ended up talking about on site was that there's an open lot right next to and behind the branch that could be easily either purchased or added. Does the library own that?
No.
No.
It could be easily purchased and an outdoor pavilion structure placed in that place. We can put ADA parking off the backside of the site that would allow for ADA access to the pavilion. And then you have outdoor protected covered programming space that you can't get out of the existing facility. So the idea was that you can get more function without spending a ton of money or renovating the interior where you just don't have the space. What we ended up doing is we spoke to some park pavilion manufacturers. This is a pre-engineered, prefabricated pavilion that can be delivered and installed by a contractor. We've just picked a random number. I mean, it's not totally random, but it's not coordinated with Gina and Joyce, of 24 by 36. And we can get two different sizes of that structure on site for less than $50,000. And it gives you, oh, I didn't calculate this, 860 square feet relatively easily. Yeah.
I just had a quick question, and this is more for the board. When I came on, we had plans drawn to build a new Shell Knob library, and I know they were raising money for that. So have we just scrapped that?
We haven't totally scrapped it, but the reality of trying to raise that money, it could be 20 years from now before the branch is actually built. Okay. So it's more of a reality check of what can we do right now to improve the facility and make it function the way we need it to.
Okay. And the donors that have already donated this money, is it for a new facility, or is this something that we could use that money for these improvements?
We would have to go back to the donors and ask permission for that.
Okay. I just wanted to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Most of these donations that we've got are kind of mom and pop donations anyway. memorials when someone died or something like that. They're not large. The majority of the money that's sitting in that account came from tax dollars. So it's not, you don't have any $100,000 donor anywhere.
I think 100,000 of that came from the library district.
Because we had two $50,000
and so
tax things out of there. So that you would not have to get anyone's permission because it was, it's money that went into Shell Knob, but it's money that came from taxes.
So only about, well, actually, I think only about.
I just don't want to upset the people of Shell Knob if they're expecting a new library like Monette, because that's what Monette's been expecting for a lot of years. And for us just to say, no, we can't do that.
What we're hearing from the people in Shell Knob is that maybe the building's too big and too fancy for them, and they'd rather just make do with what we have.
No, they just don't think we need it. And I think if we update the building and we draw more people into it and it gets busier and it gets more used to the point where people are inconvenienced, then they might say, hey, maybe we need that new library.
Right.
But that's going to take a few years.
Yeah, but on the other hand, we have a sunset clause on that property. If we haven't done something with it in a certain amount of time, it goes back to the donor. So
I know
the lot may not belong to the library at all if it's too many more years down the line, but there just doesn't seem to be the support for it in the area at all right now.
And I'll tell you that nobody, that lot's been sitting there for a long time. If he, takes it back for now, in 6, 7, 8 years, and somebody says, we need that new library, he'll be amenable to give it back to us.
Yeah. Because by taking it back, it's a tax liability to him because he's already used that donation as tax credit.
I know. Which is why I thought it was kind of weird that he expected it back after 10 years.
Yeah.
But that's him. So
what I would ask then, because we know, just because we attended board meetings over the last few months, we know that the dollar figure of dedicated to Shell Knob is less than the dollar figure that I'm showing on the screen. What I would ask then, especially Gina, with the request to redo the facade of the building, do we abandon the pavilion and put that money towards the front?
That's what I would do.
I would.
Yep. Okay. To the front. And the other thing I think we would maybe want to consider, and Joyce can poke me in the arm if she wants to, but do something there in the back where we could have some parking, some like true parking.
I don't know. It depends on whether the downstairs is going to be used by anybody.
That's true.
The problem, if that used to be that conference room used to be used quite a bit by several organizations that regularly used it. But now that they have the Senior Citizen Center, and isn't the church, doesn't it have a large community thing?
No, they aren't using those facilities.
So are they just not meeting anymore? A lot of these groups are just not meeting.
Well, I know.
Same way we are. They don't meet. Well, nobody really went to the others until you started charging, so.
Well, the groups that were using it before still had access to it for free.
Yeah,
we only started charging for for wedding showers and that sort of thing. The nonprofits were the only ones that got to use it before anyway.
But I don't know where they're meeting because, the Senior Citizen Board meets at the Senior Center. I don't know where the chamber was meeting at the Senior Citizen Center, but I don't know where they're meeting now because we're closed.
I don't know that they ever met at the library though. It was the Coast Guard.
The Coast Guard and all that. Didn't they just absolve that?
They dissolved that.
Yeah, that, I think when that
in
one guy
existence.
passed away, I think it went away.
Yeah, because they took all their
Mhm.
stuff.
Oh, yeah, that was all disbanded.
Yeah, so you just don't have a lot of groups that use it for anything.
Yeah.
So,
They-
okay, well, just the front.
Okay, so conclusion, don't do the parking in the back.
Right.
For
Got
right,
it.
for right
For
now.
right now.
That's something you could always add if you needed it.
Sure. Okay, that's it as far as drawings. There was one other project that I wanted to talk about, and that was the renovation of the existing Monet library into the main office. Hold on, let me do is it this? No. How do I minimize that? There it is.
Yeah, we've got a new roof and new heat and air.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing, I don't have a floor plan for it. Barely see on my video. I was able to get the exterior walls from a satellite image, but we don't have the floor plans. Gina and Joyce, if we can get a hold of those, we can model up the existing conditions and add that to the project. We didn't have it, and because we didn't have it, we couldn't generate images for it.
Okay.
What we have done, though, is we grabbed the program that we had for the administration area in the previous new branch facility. So this is what we were putting in 2019 and early 2020. That square footage, if you pull it out and turn it into its own building, gets to 8,600 square feet. The challenge is that the existing Monet library is 6,100 square feet. What I wanted to ask was, are there any pieces of this administration program that we can remove if we're thinking about it being placed in the existing Monet branch library?
Oh, I mean, I think that the whole thing has to change. I mean, I think that we'd have to just sit down with you again and say, okay, this is what we think we're going to use this building for in the future, and go from there, because there's no way, you're landlocked everywhere. I don't think it would be anybody's to their best interest to add on to this building. I think we would basically have to reconfigure the inside and use the square footage we've got. So I think right now, I don't think there is an answer to it. I think we just have to sit down and go over it again.
The boardroom wouldn't have to be 1,200 square feet. I mean, that's almost as big as my house.
Oh my gosh, no.
So
I mean, you know.
That was the major one that I wanted to ask the board is the new boardroom in the Monet Library branch, or does it stay at Pierce City?
No, we want it back here.
Okay.
I would say the room has to be big enough to accommodate the board and then have some seating for the public.
Okay.
But it's certainly, how big is the meeting room at Pierce City?
Gina, would we meet at the office, or would we meet at the new Monet library?
No, we'd meet
at the office.
Okay.
We'd meet here at the office. Mm-hmm. I mean, we could do that, Katie, but the plan had always been to make it just part of administration.
I think the entrance and the foyer, whatever, that would be a wasted space now because you wouldn't need it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it always has been. I mean, except for the fact that we use it for book sale, which is very good, we would not have that here anymore. So there's a lot of ways inside this that are not load-bearing walls that could be changed. It's an odd size building. It's an odd shaped building. We've got a lot of angles in it, but there's probably ways to solve a lot of the angle problem too.
So see, I think the meeting room at Pierce City is 995 square feet.
Yes.
And so I don't even think, I mean, we probably wouldn't even need that much space, but that's a comfortable space for the board to meet in and still have room for the public. So I would think maybe 600 square feet would probably be plenty.
Would we conduct interviews there? I thought it was a little tight. when we were doing interviews.
I would think that we could probably move that to a different location if that came about.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Alex, I think in this case, we probably could get rid of that conference room, don't you
Oh, yeah.
think?
Mhm.
So right away, we're now down to 6,600 square feet. And that becomes feasible in terms of us being efficient, putting rooms together, that kind of thing. What I would also throw out is that just taking this square footage, so it's not even accurate because it would be 6,100 square feet of the existing. That just hip shot renovation cost would be about 660,000.
Okay.
I think
That's-
the boardroom needs to be a little bit bigger.
Do what?
Saying 6 people, that's not, I don't think that's big enough.
Which one?
Apologies, that square footage number is incorrect. It's
Okay.
utilizing an incorrect square footage per person number. We'll redo it for a boardroom.
Okay, okay.
The point of that originally was just to get to the total building count so that we could figure out plumbing fixtures. So what I would say is this is a great starting point. This allows us, when we get that existing plan, to start analyzing the footprint and figure out what we can do. 8,400 square feet was too much for us to even start.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that answers that one. The last piece that I wanted to show you was something that I've shown to Gina and Joyce by email, long time ago by now. The actual data isn't necessary to look at. The idea is that we took a look at each one of the branch locations, figured out when the major building systems were installed, identified typical lifespans of those systems, and then projected out when those systems would likely need to be replaced. The idea there is that the board can then set up and budget for replacement of major systems before they break, as opposed to as they happen, and then you're scrambling or all of those things. I would put forward some roof renovations would be a wonderful example of that. The spreadsheet that we've created is smart. So you would be able to change this year. Let's say we change this to, we want to take a look at 2030. And then all of the systems in the buildings that would be outside of their expected lifespans turn red. We will turn this over to the district at the end.
I just had a heart attack.
Yeah, well, we are not trying to scare you. We want you to have information so that you can make decisions ahead of time.
Gotcha.
The questions I really have for the board, and it does not have to be today, is the average lifespan of a system versus the year that you actually want to replace it. So the expected lifespan of a condenser is 15 years, and we've listed that over here. If the board wants to change that to 20 years, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But getting that feedback for some kind of a time frame or a frequency or when the board would want to replace specific systems will let us know which systems need to be replaced when. Does that make sense?
Sure will help us with budgeting maintenance cost in a year.
Right, and that's the real intention. So just if, and today is definitely not the day because you're already 2.5 hours into a 3-hour meeting.
Yeah, and we gotta wrap up quickly, so.
Yeah, what I wanted to share was just that concept or that idea, get the board's feedback. Our goal right now is to wrap up master planning at the January board meeting. That means that Gina, Joyce, Paragon would have to work relatively quickly in order to hit that date being early in the month. The more information, to make things a little bit more complicated, all of Paragon shuts down between Christmas and New Year's. So we've got we have to cover a lot of ground very, very quickly. Anything that the board or Gina and Joyce, you guys can create and send to us that we can work quickly on is appreciated.
Yeah, we'll be shut down the same time, Alex, so.
Okay. So with that, I promise I'm done. I have no more to present. I will shut up. If there was anything else that you guys had.
Well, we're excited, Alex, and we appreciate all your hard work because this is exactly what we wanted, was a plan to move forward and information so that we knew how to incorporate future building plans without it just being off the cuff sort of thing.
I'm really glad that we're meeting the expectation. That was our hope, and not knowing and not being able to talk with you, I went today with a lot of apprehension, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, no, we've talked quite a bit. I'm so sorry that I'm really sorry things happened the way they did for me. So
we are too. That's not, yeah.
Just unfortunate that we didn't get things the way we wanted. So
right.
We appreciate the work, Alex.
And
Jessica and Tanner and Carrie.
You'll see a lot more of them for the MoNet project moving forward. All right. Well, then with that, we'll leave you guys in peace.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you all.
And we can do the rest of this quickly, you all. So.
I don't think you need me for a quorum, but I have to pick my kids up. They have half a day and then it's Christmas break. So okay. I'll be on here. When I leave, that's why I'm leaving.
Okay.
Okay. Gina, I had sent you a text that I was not happy with LJ Hart's numbers, but after their explanation, it makes more sense.
And I, like I told you all in the email with that, I didn't really want to say it while they were there, although he sort of alluded to it, is that you all do not have to go with LJ Hart. I just didn't have time to set up any other companies. And in fact, when he called me, I was so confused the other day and I explained to him what had happened. I'm like, I'm sorry, my brain is mush. And then I realized that I had asked them to present at this meeting. And so I scrambled, but I do plan to call Commerce Bank because they're the other ones we've used. And if you have an idea for somebody else, it has to be somebody that does public projects, because you can't just go to any bank for a loan. It has to be a certain kind of thing. I mean, it has to be these, for us, lease purchase certificates, unless we go out for a bond, and we don't want to, that would gum everything up for us. So
I think
public vote.
I think what upset me the most was the $1.5 million of interest we'd be spending. That just seemed even for a banker. I was working in a $4 million branch, but that's still not, you don't lend on the same level, and just like it's a bit of sticker shock.
Well, and the only reason I've brought up Commerce Bank is because we worked with Commerce Bank on 2 of our projects. They are local, I mean, they went outside the area to sell the lease purchase certificates also. But, to me, and we've worked with LJ Hart, and they were great when we worked with them. But, to me, we would have I think it would help us to raise money if they knew we were talking to local people also about financing the project.
Absolutely.
And that's the only reason. But because Commerce was really good to work with, we actually put the remaining part of Cassville's branch, and when we did Marionville, we combined those 2, and we went with Commerce after we had paid off LJ Hart. And so that they were very good to work with. They got us, you know, they worked with us on a really good deal, a thing we could afford. And so I just felt like we needed to go to someone local. If theirs is totally out of the ballpark, then at least we've done due diligence. We've talked to somebody local. They couldn't give us the deal that LJ Hart could, but at least everyone in the round would know that we did not go out of our area specifically for this. We tried to keep the money local. We tried to keep that, you know, as close as possible. So that was the only reason I've brought it up all along, is because I just think, I think it would behoove us for people to know we tried.
And I'll call Commerce Bank and have them do something for the January meeting. And then you all can, unless, like I said, if somebody has another idea, LJ Hart, I picked because they had approached us, but also I knew they did a lot of financing
in this
area.
Yeah.
And
they have, but their charges were really pretty high. I felt like, you know, their underwriting charges, $78,000, and then they charged $1,800 a month or something.
No, a year.
$1,800 a year maintenance.
And then taking 3 cents of our 7-cent increase just seemed like, oh, you got this money, like, give it to me.
Well, I mean, I don't know that the other figures, quite honestly, are going to come in too much different. But you know, I mean, this is the largest project we've ever done, and right now we're looking at financing from $1 because we've not done any fundraising. If we are lucky enough to do fundraising, and we could possibly raise a third of the cost, a half of the cost, if we were really lucky, then that money goes towards paying this off after 5 years. And so, and that's basically what we did before. We were able to pay it off early, and that saved us quite a bit of financing on it. But you have to meet that sunshine, plateau before you can pay anybody off. But we were able to do that. And so maybe we'll get lucky and do that. But they're looking at from $1 on $4,100,000. So maybe we won't be
financing. They said that some of that, depending on what we decide we really want to finance, that was just a starting point of doing the entire amount. So, but I just didn't want to wait until February to start this process, because we need to be ready to hit the ground and have the money available to start construction.
And we have had some interest lately from other people wanting to know for sure, since we did get our levy passed, is this going to be the year that we're actually going to go with the Monette project? And these are people that are kind of movers and shakers around here. So when we're able to say, yes, we have a plan, this is concrete, this is what we're going to do, even if we have to finance it, which we're hoping we don't have to, this is what we're going to do, and it's going to happen this next year. And there's a lot more positive feedback from that right now. Great. I'm tickled to death to see you finally finalize something and do something. So I'm hoping that'll help us when we get ready to, raise donations for it.
I hope so too.
Do you talk to Commerce out of Springfield, I'm assuming?
No,
because well, I banked there all my life, and they're just a little spit of what they once were. There's hardly anything there. So keep that in mind when you call.
Well, I mean, now that's just, and then all along we always knew that's just a local sort of branch of what Commerce is. But at least they are considered by local people as local people.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they were, that financing didn't come out of Cassville.
That means I probably need to call Springfield and not Cassville.
You might.
It just tell you who to talk to.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. Cassville lost, they had gone down to just the one little branch. They'd closed the big bank, and they lost their manager a couple of months ago. She died unexpectedly. So it always appears to me there's just a couple of little teeny boppers in there running it. So
well, it's kind of like UMB though. Yeah. I mean, we're down to just two branches here in UMB, one branch now, but all the financing, that's who LJ Hart's looking at, but they're not coming out of here. The financing for UMB is coming out of St. Louis. So.
And I do like Todd McCracken. I don't know if you guys know him, but Todd that was on there, that was a superintendent at East Newton that works for him now. I do like him, just for the record.
Well, they were really decent people to work with before. That's been a lot of years ago, but they have. But I'm thinking, you know, if nothing else but for appearance sake, at least we tried somebody that has a local connection to us.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
Minutes from November.
We have the November 19th.
And
And before the meeting started, I sent you the 23rd, which was when we opened the CMR RFQ submissions. Regina pointed out that I sent you the agenda, so I hurriedly sent you the minutes, and they're only a page, so.
That deer in the headlight kind of look.
Did everybody have a chance to read them over?
The 19th is what you're looking at now.
Yeah, the 19th. We'll do the 19th first. That was the regular board meeting.
Yeah, I've read those over. Has everybody read those? I need a motion to approve the 19th meeting.
Dan and Wendy.
All in favor?
Hey.
Motion carried. Now for the 23rd.
On the 23rd, it basically is just a list of the names that were read and then that the committee met afterwards. Not much to it.
Mhm.
Do we have a motion?
Okay, need a motion to approve the 23rd's minutes.
I moved it.
And Janine.
And
All in favor?
Okay.
Janine, did you in favor? She.
Yes,
motion.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, never mind. Never mind. Okay, financial report.
Okay, so I'll do this quickly. We only got about $8,000 in November in income, which is not unusual. We're still ahead year to date compared to last year, with 163 compared to 153. And then our expenses were 144,486 for the month, which is pretty good. Consider all things considered. We will have the roof expenses this month coming that you'll see for December. In checking, we have 200,463. With our savings, that's about $300,000, and then reserves of 797,572. I can tell you, I don't know the exact amount, but we did receive for our current taxes, we did receive our first payments, and they're good. They're really good. So
yeah, we've never actually gotten a check like that for November, and these were actually November payments. And so between the two of them, we had roughly $400,000.
So I breathed a big sigh of relief that we could make it through December. So we are good. And I think we're going to see some nice big checks in the first of the year. So we hope so. I don't want to, jinx it, but so that's it.
If we got $10 left in the account at the end of the year, we're good.
We're good. That's right.
If we're not borrowing money to make payroll, we're excellent, because we've certainly had to do that in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need a motion to approve?
Need a motion yeah, I'm coming, Joyce.
I'm sorry.
Keep your pants on. Need a motion to approve the financial report.
Move.
Deborah, a second? Wendy, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Circulation stats.
Okay, so we're down quite a bit as we have been every month compared to last year, and eventually we'll be comparing apples to apples with evergreen to evergreen. But we're really down because Mount Vernon was only open 7 days in November because of COVID and roof things, and we'll get to that in a minute. So 16,262 with Monette being the top circulator and then Cassville coming in second. We were only open an average of 16 compared to 19 days. You can see we're doing really well with that e-material. We're up 300 circulations compared to last year with MoLib to go. And then in Hoopla, we're up like 800 circulations. So that's really good. I'm really pleased with that. And then we have about half of our computer use, which is not surprising considering only about half of our computers are actually available for the public because of social distancing. And then we're about half our use with wireless. And again, it just the way it is. Programs, we just keep perking along. Some places are doing virtual, some aren't. Some are doing outside programming when the weather's nice. Of course, I don't think we're doing that right now. Some are doing off-site programming since our meeting rooms are really too small to do social distance programs. And we had decided not to do that. So we did 100 programs with 2319 in attendance. So I think that's pretty good overall. And there's not much to say on the branch activity report. So.
Okay, director's report.
So I reported on this at the last board meeting since our board meeting had occurred about the time that stuff was going on. But at Mount Vernon, because of heavy wind and rain and hail, we had water damage in the branch. The regional office staff, I'm really proud of. They didn't really have a choice, but they could have really moaned about it. And actually they did kind of, but they picked themselves up off the ground and they went out to Mount Vernon and the Monette staff as well, and took all those books off the shelves. They went through every book to make sure that they pulled out all the water damaged items. I guess I didn't see it. I don't know that anybody took pictures, but they had books stacked everywhere. We rented a storage unit from Iron Gate, a pod, and we put the shelving in the pod so that ServPro could come in and clean the carpet and remove all those damaged tiles and insulation. And all that went off without a hitch. Once the Mount Vernon staff came out of quarantine, they were able to help and finish the project because all that shelving had to go back up, and then all the books had to go back on the shelves and everything had to be cleaned. So everything's done. All that got done. The new Melvin put in the insulation and ceiling tiles, so the branch is put back to rights. And they were able to reopen to the public on November 30th. So Delta Roofing will be paying the cost of all the book replacement and everything. I'm going to estimate it's probably going to be about $15,000. The books were the biggest expense. That was about $10,000 worth of damage. So the rest of it, the ServPro's portion and the tiles and stuff compared to the book cost, replacement cost was pretty insignificant. So we'll be putting together an invoice for Delta and giving that to them. So we did receive another $3,000 donation from Marlena Bond, who is Judge Sweeney's daughter. She did this for us last year, and she has also applied to Walmart where she works for matching grant. And last year they matched it with another $3,000. So I anticipate in total we'll get $6,000 in that case.
And this is for the building fund.
For the Monette Building Fund. And she's one of the ones that's very excited. And so we'll see what she asked Joyce about naming rights for the children's department. So we'll see what happens with that. The CMR, as you know, I just wanted to report the CMR committee did meet on November 30th to score the CMR RFQ submissions. I just wanted it noted since we didn't have it anywhere else. And then the COVID quarantine, I just want you to know we've had random employees that have had to quarantine that did not affect closing an entire branch. And we just continue to deal with that as it comes up. And we just breathe a sigh of relief when it doesn't involve everybody. Everybody's dealing with the same thing across the state. All of us are kind of tired and we're ready for things to go back to normal, which I don't think will ever happen. So
Yeah, it will.
It will, but right now it seems like an endless.
It's going to be a new normal.
You know. So that's all I got.
Okie dokie. I need a motion to approve the director's report, please.
I so move.
Thank you, Jan.
I'll
And Wendy, Julie second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Health insurance renewal update.
Oh, let me add one thing to to my director's report. I know you approved it and you don't have to, but I just want to give you a heads up. You know, last time we talked about Alex Sherman, who who wanted to come back in the library, and we went in closed session and decided no, that he wasn't allowed to come back. I have talked to him at least twice since the board meeting and told him he is special needs, and we've had to kind of go over things pretty sternly, that the reason why this happened, he thinks that maybe we were being unfair to him. I told him at the last conversation I had with him that if he thought we were unfair, that he had every right to ask to see the board, to talk to the board himself, and that he had to let me know Wednesday before the board meeting that he wanted to speak to you all, and we would figure out how to make that happen. And I got a note from Rhonda about 30 minutes into the meeting that he had called to speak to me. So I'm just giving you a heads up. This might come up again. I will tell him what I told him before, which is the board made a decision. They're sticking by it. But I just wanted you to kind of know that this is not ended with him. And I did ask him what all of a sudden, why he wanted to use the library after 20 years of not using it. And he wants to check books out. And I did explain to him that we would make every effort to still check books out to him, that he could call the branch, they would pull material, they would check it out to him, and they would put it out just like we do for contactless delivery. And he could pick the books up and bring them back the same way without ever having contact with the staff. And so it's not that we wouldn't give him service, he just can't come in the library. So it's just a heads up that that's going on.
Okay.
I wanted to mention that on the record. Okay, so insurance. So I guess this weekend I got an email from the office assistant at Randy Bell's that they re-quoted, MIWA re-quoted our insurance rate. So instead of the $9,820 that we were anticipating, it instead will be over $16,000.
What?
Yeah. So I'm pretty hot about that, and she was pretty hot about it. And so I don't think we want to spend $16,000. And she said she could not get Anthem to back down and stick to their original quote. And when I went through the paperwork from MIWA, it does state, where is it? That, let's see, let me find it. Sorry.
Just a second.
The quoted rates assume the employer is funding less than 50% of any employee deductible, bank account, or out-of-pocket expenses. Employer funding of 50% or more of the employee cost could have an impact on the pricing of the plan and may cause the quoted rates to be revised. If the employer is funding more than 50% of the employee deductible or out-of-pocket costs, the employer must notify the Missouri Chamber Federation benefit plan. I think that's where they got, even though we're not funding the deductible, we're funding the premium. That's the only reason I can think that they would do that. I really still think I might file a complaint with the insurance commission because to me, it's a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Anthem. So at any rate, I don't want to do $16,000. The whole idea was to have a better cost savings to the library and a better plan to the employees. So I'm going to have to instead recommend that we rescind what you said last time and just keep what we have.
Which
was the gold blue 5SDV for $14,736.46. I think it was a 2.74% increase over last year. Most everything was the same except the out-of-pocket went up for the individual.
Yeah.
Well,
How much was the out of pocket?
For the MEWA plan,
Yeah.
the MEWA plan would have been out-of-pocket of $4,000.
Wow. That's a lot.
It was going to be more on deductible end, but there was no co-insurance. So I don't know what to say because I don't have an alternate plan. I do plan next year. We just didn't meet the deadline is for us to look at the state plan. I can't remember what it's called.
It used to be consolidated.
Yeah. It's a consolidated plan that a lot of the libraries use in the state, but it was too late for them to give us a quote because of open enrollment. And so that we're on the list for next year, and that may be a plan that we can go with.
that's sad. It really is.
I think I included in your stuff what I had given you before, the comparison. So,
well, what choice do we have?
We don't.
we really don't. It's still less than I budgeted because I budgeted for a 25% increase. I think it was 20 or 20. It was 20 something % increase. So we come out okay. The employee still comes out okay. It's just that out of pocket is going to be about $2,500 more than what we're paying right now. That's right. I'm sorry, $1,500 more. Our out of pocket at the present time is $4,900.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, need a motion to accept the gold blue preference or preferred insurance.
Do they need to cancel their?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, because they changed it on us. We didn't change our mind. They changed it on us. So basically, we're going to approve the existing plan.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need a motion.
I'll move.
Deborah? All in favor?
Who was second?
Deborah?
Who was the second?
Deborah?
Who was the second?
Who was first then?
Wendy?
Okay. I'm sorry I missed that.
Anything else?
Is Mr. Piter okay?
Shirley called this morning. He's having some problems, some heart problems. He just didn't feel like he could, be there. Dana offered to bring it over to the house, but that's an awful lot of reading, and she just didn't think he was up to doing that. So he just said he didn't think he could be there. We told him we would send everything that we had talked about to him so he could go through it, but he just wasn't able to be there.
Okay.
Okay. So we need a Mr. Piter substitute who's going to adjourn.
Yeah, because he'd be asking for pizza right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You send us
I
a
still
case
move
of
that we
pizza.
adjourn.
I
Thank you,
second.
Jan. Janine second, all in favor?
Okay. I want to thank you all. I know this was a long meeting, but I really appreciate all of you all, and thank you all for the prayers and support and cards during this time. It's not been fun. That's all I can say.
No.
No. It's hard to become an orphan so quickly.
Yeah, like instantly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And now I have to do all the paperwork, and I was going to do what you suggested, Gina, with the transfer on death and all that, but fortunately, I'm actually an account holder on all my parents' accounts. I didn't know that.
That's good.
Hey.
I told my
Yeah.
brother, haha, I get all the money.
And all the
That
bills.
works.
I
How is
laughed.
your
He
brother?
knows I was kidding.
Bills are paid.
So, yeah. I'm also the bill payer. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Have a
Okay.
wonderful Christmas, everybody.
Bye, guys.
yeah. Merry
too.
Christmas and Happy New
Bye.
Year.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Bye.
Try to stay safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Hey,
too.
Things are not
How's your
great, so
husband,
try to stay safe.
how's your husband?
We've got his COVID back yesterday and he was negative. We got his COVID test back yesterday and he was negative, which we're very glad of, but he's doing pretty good, but he's had, 2 surgeries in 5 weeks. And then we came down with all these symptoms and they were convinced it was COVID. So we had to test him again. So he's doing, the best he can. It's just been a tough year for everybody.
Yeah.
Julie, I still might want to talk to you about looking for another house
Okay. Okay.
that works better for me. We'll see.
Yeah.
Not for a while.
Thanks a lot,
Mine
guys.
for sale.
Bye.
Not
Mine-
until Bob.
Oh,
Oh my.
okay, fine. Be that way.
All right. Talk to you later.